Hello guys, welcome back to another video. It is once again going to be Throwback Thursday. There will be more streams and more videos other than this particular series coming soon. I've just been moving into a new place, as you can see behind me. Should mean better internet. Unfortunately, the room is incredibly dusty, and no matter how many times I try to clean it, it still seems to be dusty, so my nose has been incredibly stuffed. But today, I've got by far my favorite deck for you. This is my favorite deck that has ever existed in the game. Using my favorite card that has ever existed in the game, and if you haven't figured it out yet, it is the Soviet Japan Night Witch's Control. Now, this is a deck which has, like, Soviet Japan value has existed for a very long time. People saw that Japan has a lot of removal. Empire of the Sun is really good with Soviets, and Soviets lack draw, and Empire of the Sun is removal that draws. So Soviet Japan value, I did not come up with this deck. It's existed for a very long time. But I was the one who really pioneered this card as the win condition. Now obviously you might be looking at this card now and thinking, well, how is that a win condition? You would be correct. The current card now is just sort of like a value generation card. The old Night Witches, well, there's been 4 iterations of Night Witches. The original Night Witches just sucked. It was 1 cost, summon a Polycarpov, put this card back in your deck, nobody ran it. It was terrible. And then they buffed it, because it was so terrible, to add a Polycarpov and a From the People to your hand. Put Night Witches back in your deck. And that was the version that I used to really push this deck to tier 1. I would not say that it was the strongest deck at the time. It could still struggle against aggro, it could still struggle against ramp, but it was by far the deck with the highest skill cap, and if played correctly, would seem like the strongest deck. It's just most people could not play it correctly. I mean, I truly believe that I was the only person who ever mastered this deck. And basically, what you would use is your entire deck is removal. Like, look at this: 3 Amphibious Assaults, 2 Hammers, 4 Sickles, 8 45ths, Chaikas. I ran 2nd Rifles. Zhukov used to be draw a Soviet infantry, reduce its cost by 3, which would make this essentially a 1-cost guard. Also, 1st Rifles used to suck, so there's no 1st Rifles in this deck. And then 2 Takasaki, 3 61st, just guards for days, critical hit. That is how much removal is in this deck. Critical hits here. And then you might wonder, what Yak 9 Workers Unite? Kind of odd. And Empire of the Sun. So the point of this deck is you were just removing everything. You're slamming down guards. You're trying to negate all of their damage. You're trying to heal with 8 45ths and Engineers. But you're trying to draw a ton of cards while you're doing it. So there's basically every single card draw card available to Soviets at the time in this deck. There's 4 copies of Sickle. There is Zhukov. There is Parade. There is 2 copies of Workers Unite. There is Yaks to draw. There's 3 61sts to draw. And of course there's the Empire of the Sun to draw. And the reason you want to draw so much is Night Witches is essentially infinite. If you get to an empty deck and Night Witches in hand, it means every single turn you are playing add a From the People and a Polycarpov to your hand. And now, one instance of add a 1/2 bomber and a deal 3 damage to your hand, it's not that great. Like, you're essentially just playing, you're paying 4 cost for a From the People, and also you get a Polycarpov, which has 0 synergy with the deck and is a terrible unit on its own. However, if you have an infinite number of these, it gets really, really good, because it means you're dealing 3 guaranteed damage to a unit a turn while summoning a threat your opponent has to respond with, because a 1/2 bomber on its own kind of sucks. It's really easy to kill. But if you're playing a 1/2 bomber every single turn, suddenly you're getting a lot of free damage and you're trading down the board. Your opponent has to be killing these bombers, and if they're killing these bombers, they're not killing you. Plus, once you get down to an empty deck with Night Witches in hand, every single draw card in your deck becomes add a 2nd Night Witches to your hand, essentially. So because you can do Night Witches, put it back in your deck, play Bloody Sickle, draw Night Witches again, play Night Witches again, put it back in your deck. And it basically just turns every single draw card effect into another Night Witches you can trigger. So this deck, I mean, the reason they eventually change Night Witches is they don't like inevitability, because the point of this deck was basically just get through your entire opponent's deck and then kill every single card that they can play, summon, generate, whatever. And then eventually you win the game because you have an infinite number of Night Witches and your opponent runs out of cards and dies in fatigue. So that led to some very long games, and some people argue that it led to very unfun games. Now, this is my favorite way to play any card game, so obviously I think it's fun, but yeah, people didn't like it, they nerfed it. I'm actually going to show you two lists of this one. This is the very first one I brought to OCC number 5, and I actually won this OCC in large thanks to this deck. This was the first OCC I ever won. And we'll see some pretty major differences. He's running Recon, because Recon draws. I thought that Recon would be good. It's okay, but you can't just run too much draw, because if you actually lack value, like, for example, if your deck just started with Night Witches, you would lose. Your opponent's going to summon too many units too quickly, and you will eventually just lose, even if Night Witches is the only card in your deck. So you can't just run card draw. You do need to actually run high value cards. A couple other changes in this deck. Motor Rifles. I mean, Motor Rifles is pretty good in a Jaguar meta, but it's, again, low value per card. It doesn't draw, and the card itself is not great, whereas second Rifles can actually get some damage in. It's better in a wider number of decks. 4 copies of Critical Hit. This was really funny. I mean, Critical Hit's not that great of a card, but just, I really wanted more removal, and there was a lot of ramp decks around at the time I built this deck. So, like, with ramp, they're just 2 B-17s, 2 Avengers, 2 Grengards. A lot of them were running Persian. So Critical Hit's just really good into all of those. The reason I ended up cutting it, and the reason this deck did not dominate the meta, is Germany was very popular with Panther Gs and the Tiger IE, and this entire deck is based around order-based removal. So if your opponent plays a Tiger IE, Naval Brigade is the only card in your deck that can kill it. And that also means you need to figure out a way to kill 2 Panther Gs with units. Which is possible, but really, really difficult. 2 Blade of the Samurai. So if you actually look, this deck has 2 Empire of the Sun, 2 Blade of the Samurai, Naval Brigade, and 3 copies of Critical Hit. That is 8 Destroy a Unit cards. So this deck was quite fun. However, I refined it in the next month. This was the one the list I brought to the November OCC. Also, the list I won the October the October season with. And to this day, I'm like 99% certain that I'm the only player to have ever won a season with Soviet control of any form. Just because control games take so long, but I was pulling such a crazy win rate with this deck. It's like, even if my average game like this, like 18 minutes, if I don't lose, I don't lose, right? So this is the version I brought to the October OCC, sorry, the November OCC, and I won that one as well. So this was the second OCC I won 2 in a row, both off the back of Soviet Japan control. And this was actually the same list that I brought to the Open qualifiers, where I qualified 8-1, something like that. Played this deck basically every game, or the heavy set. It worked wonders. And I believe this is also the same list, or at least a very similar list, to the one I brought to the top 16 of the 2020 World Championship, where I proceeded to lose with this deck twice in a row. Got knocked out of the top 16. I lost to Germany, Japan, Control, that played Leopold on turn 10 and 11. Like, they played 2 copies off of Africa Corps. And then I lost to L640 on, like, turn 5. So, was this the best deck in the game ever? No. Was this deck undefeatable? No. What was really sad is, I lost 0-2 with this in top 16 of World Championship, dropped out. Most players who brought this deck either dropped out or they switched off this deck. There was not a single copy of this deck in the top 4 of the 2020 World Championship, because everyone was just like, oh wait, people have figured out how to counter it. And then like a month later, after everyone stopped playing this deck, then Breakthrough came out with the research, and Soviet Control just fell off a cliff because research was just so much better than Night Witches. Like, because Night Witches does not stop Bletchley Park from immediately winning a game. It does not stop Nukes from immediately winning the game, because this was back pre-nerfed Bletchley, where Bletchley sent all cards on board in deck, or a hand into deck, and Nukes dealt 10 damage each. So, yeah, research came out, this deck fell off the map. Nobody was playing this competitively or otherwise. And then they nerfed Night Witches to make it even worse. You have to pick from the people in the bomber. And then nobody was playing it again, and then they just decided to change it all together and change it, Night Witches, into what it is now, which is add 3 Polycarpovs to your hand, which, with Destruction, add from the people to your hand. So basically they took off the fatigue blocking element. I'm very disappointed. I love fatigue decks. I love inevitability. Well, this type of inevitability. OTK decks, not as much of a fan. Because at least this offers counterplay. So, how do we build the deck in modern day? Now, there's a couple of ways which you can use to block fatigue still in the game. Potion does not work. Potion does not block fatigue damage, little known fact. However, double strength. Shovel a copy of a random order in your hand into your deck. If the only 2 orders in your hand are both copies of double strength will shuffle the other double strength into your deck, and then you draw it, and then you play it. So basically, it is Night Witches, except it doesn't give you a bomber, it doesn't give you a From the People, and it requires 2 cards to work. So, yeah, we're not going to be doing any fatigue blocking deck. I mean, realistically, this deck archetype just does not work anymore. There's no realistic ways to block fatigue, which does not suck. A really good way to combat fatigue is Road to Berlin, because if you get into a fatigue matchup, you can't draw a ludicrous amount, because if you draw way too much, you're just going to die before your opponent hits fatigue. But if you both hit fatigue around the same time, Road to Berlin is going to be healing you 3 every time they take fatigue past the 3rd damage, which is a pretty big difference. However, I might just play the deck as is, because like, this deck is not going to... It doesn't work, really. And if I take out all the card draw because there's no inevitability anymore, it just sort of becomes a Soviet Japan control deck. So we're going to keep the deck as is, and then just use our collective imagination that Night Witches is still a good card. I'm not currently in Field Marshal. I think I'm like rank 4. So if I lose, I lose. If I win, maybe we'll rank up a bit. And I will pause the recording, blow my nose, and come back once we get a game. Alright. Took about a minute. What's it gonna be? US. Well, we'll see what type of US deck it is. Not gonna keep Amphibious Assault. There's enough removal in this deck that, like, basically anything it is. If it is ramp, there's no deck where Amphibious Assault is, like, super amazing against the US, and I'm probably going to draw something to deal with it. If it is ramp, actually, often the best way to win is just pressuring them out, especially because I do not have inevitability. So I'm going to keep Cossacks. Let's see what else I get. Honestly, I could have full capped there. Night Witches. Feels bad. Like, if this was old Night Witches, I could play it on turn 1, and then on turn 2 throw down a bomber and engineers. And then would have gotten hard countered by AA gun. So, worked out. Okay, so it's a US-Soviet RD deck. Caddy Face. Interesting. Probably just want to Amphibious Assault the Caddy. to be completely honest. I mean, if we don't find Sickle, we don't find Sickle. We find second Caddy. Also high rolls. Interesting. Problem if I do Cossacks move up, and he does 10th Engineers, he can just kill both units. I mean, that does heal me 7, and then I can 0 into the Engineers. Could this guy stop, maybe? It's 3 Caddy high rolls in a row. And draw last. Please, everybody. Draw first. Like, he could have sickled the Cossacks and drawn to see what he gets. And then attack Cossacks with Caddy. And if it high rolls, and then you just shoot the 845th with the AA gun patroller, you've done your turn in the exact same way. And if it doesn't high roll, you shoot it with the AA gun, 845th lives, one of your RDs dies, but that would have happened either way if Caddy didn't high roll. But no, instead, we got to attack with Caddy first, high roll, then, instead of sickling the 1 health Cossacks and drawing, then we attack it with AA gun, then patrol, then sickle. Honestly, I'm considering just attacking Caddy and Night Witching. Can you imagine if this was old Night Witches? I'd just get it from the people, kill Callie. Oh, I'd be so far ahead. Alright. I mean, I think I'm in like a very winning position. Okay, now he draws first. I mean, I can just get from the people to kill Callie and then play down 2 more Polycarpovs. Thank goodness they changed Callie. If that was the old version where it took 1 damage from all sources, that'd be pretty rough. AT, Greyhound, Cadet, no score. It's pretty cool. I just double trade and play second, because second brigade actually trades with Greyhound here. It's actually a pretty good position. Second rifles, man. Who would have known? Oh, please double hit the bombers. No. Okay. Sad. I'm tempted to get KV up and running. Yeah, I actually think I will just do that. Because if he has the Hellcat to trade, he has the Hellcat to trade. This sort of puts pressure on him if he wants to Sherman. Drops him to 12. Okay. Patrol to take out Chaika. It's actually pretty good for him. Howie. Double hit. Okay, so Howitser's dying. Let's sickle first. He's playing an arty deck, so like I think I'd rather keep the from the people. Last card in hand might be enemy spotted, so I'm not gonna take the front line. Although honestly, I guess if it is enemy spotted, he still sort of takes like a ton of damage. Could you not get Callie? Body. I think I'll just kill both units. I have hammer now. So, stopping Sherman. I mean... Actually, I think I'll just play first rifles. If he has Sherman, he has Sherman. Frankly, I don't mind. He might not even run Sherman in this deck. He doesn't run like a ton of units to take the front line. From the people kills Callies, so I'm gonna do it like this. And yeah, this is just sort of how the deck works. Like, if you've noticed how I've been playing, I've just slowly grinded him out of units. And, like, I have all the choices in the world with how I want to kill this. And I didn't even have to play either of these draw cards. And Yak draws on board. And, yeah, I didn't really run out of cards. I mean, Night Witch is definitely... The new Night Witch has definitely helped in that respect. I am kind of curious how a Soviet Japan value removal deck, just without fatigue as the win condition, maybe you just run like 1 or 2 larger units. And like, I mean, control decks nowadays don't necessarily run a ton of threats or like long-term win conditions. So like, for example, I'm really curious if you just edited this deck slightly, how it would do into... Like, German Italy will eventually just run out of cards, and if you don't, because like Empire of the Sun on JU or whatever, on Leopold, redraw your entire hand, you don't need a ton of cards to take out German Italy control. I mean, I guess it's... The number of threats you need to run is really high just because of double Lion for a Day, double Decima. They're probably running double Annihilation as well. So, like... Yeah. They just have very efficient threat removals as well. Britain. It's probably air. But I'm going to keep Sickle, because I've seen a ton of Britain-France. Amphibious Assault is really, really good into air. But I've seen a ton of Britain-France mobilize. A smaller number of commandos, but still some. Let's see what he does. Okay, so it is air, seems like. Do I just want to amphibious assault that? So if he does cast attack, I mean, if he does cast attack, I just trade into it. And I've healed 7. All the way. Well, I can confidently say I was not expecting that. I wonder if he's running Cass in this deck. Cass with like a couple of British air units on with like legions in the middle. Seems like a pretty cool wombo combo. I don't think I want to hammer that just to trade. Do I? I mean, hammer plus sickle kills Tar now. And hammer kill, he might be running the, I could just 61st trade. He might be running the, 4/6, deal 2 damage whenever you play an intel card. I've seen a lot of stranger, Britain Poland decks built that way. I mean, it might get altered, but... Doubting. Okay. I mean, I'd prefer to trigger doubting on this turn where I don't really need to Workers Unite than on, like, turn 10 where I need to Empire Strikes to not die. could just slam KV. Like, he's holding up another 3 credits. There's like an 100% chance it's Ultra or second Doubting, because this guy's a sociopath. Excuse me, my eye's really itchy. Mosquito. Well, now I can work as Unite. Probably just gonna trade with the KV. I'm assuming he's trying to set up like a carpet bombing. Yeah. Move up. Do I want to make that trade? Maybe. Let's see what I draw. Man, there is like, what? I guess there's 10 guards in this deck. A quarter of this deck is guard, and like half the deck is removal. If he double trades, I overdraw. Okay. I'm not saying double trading was actually correct for him. Almost certainly wouldn't be, but the speed at which he went double face does seem odd to me. A lot of people just like play as if every single deck is a face race, or like every single matchup is a face race. Like if you're playing a control deck, you're playing a control deck. That does not mean you need to like get as much damage in as possible. Here comes the tar now. Hands are really full, so I'll probably just sickle hammer it. I mean, I feel like these buffaloes just do not do anything. Like, he could hit into the Takasagi to go up to a 3-2. I'll probably trade into a Legions rather than the buffalo before the sickle hammer. So, sickle first. Come on, dude. What did he heal for again? 4. What's 4? Is that my 1 critical damage? I think so. I could still do this. And making room for Empire of the Sun. Well, again, I would rather the Secret Operatives trigger on Sickle than it triggers on Empire of the Sun. So here we see a bit of a problem with the deck. I'm running out of, well, not running out. I'm like getting further and further down on card value. Like if you see, he has more cards in hand and more cards in deck. And I'm perfectly fine on board. But it's in that deck, it's the in-deck part that is going to kill me at the end of the game, because I do not have fatigue blocking anymore. If this gets ultra'd, I'm going to be really sad, but I don't think I have a particularly great alternative. I guess I could, like, sickle 0 Allegiance. I mean, probably has Uprising, right? Let's just start with sickle. If it gets ultra'd, it gets ultra'd. Cool. So yeah, it's just gonna be the 272nd. If he does have... So how many... He's played 3 Plan Wests. Tar now... So I think he's had 9 Legions die. So yeah, trade... Critical hit. Do I just pass? think I'll just pass. If he has Uprising plus my critical hit off of the orb, he can just full clear the board. And I do need to win. Like, I do need threats to win. I think I need to space my threats out slightly more. Huh. Alright. Slam that and pass. I mean, I could just pass. Okay, if he has Avery, like if he has move up Avery, attack face for like 8, suddenly I'm like hard losing. I mean, I don't have Night Witches in deck, so I can just Empire of the Sun this. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Just see what I get. Mill Takasagi, Mill Sickle. Takasagi will be missed, the Sickle, not so much. There's the Avery. I can kill it. His Majesty's chosen last. Impressive. So this is happening. And then I think the best way to deal with this board is like that. I still have Tractor Factories in deck. 222nd in hand. It's a really good thing I did not get blown out by Avery. I mean, like, Avery is still very, very good, obviously. Sexton. Gonna die to the hammer. This is like second secret ops. Okay. It's about to be real sad. Do I care if he hits me for 2? I mean, I really don't think so. Like, his deck maybe has Lancasters for burn. Maybe. But I have, like, Engineers on board now. 845th in hand. Chika to stop Bomber Blitz. There's the Uprising. Okay, now 272nd Cards comes out. Actually just Yak might be marginally better. I keep forgetting that this is a 2-2 now. In my head it was a 3-2. Okay. If he's running crap like this, I still might be able to win. Second carpet bombing down. Oh, if this gets hit by second doubting, I'm gonna be so sad. I think it's best to just go for the Night Witches. If he can kill this and then Uprising, or like critical damage Uprising full clears the board again. However, I'm perfectly fine if he wants to throw in his critical hit and second Uprising to kill that, because then he's basically just out of removal and I can Tractor Factory. Okay. Uh-huh. Well, that's a fun little thing. If you would, that's a really fun thing about Empire of the Sun, is like, if you don't want to draw a ton of cards, you can just do stuff like that. Perfectly fun. I mean, I'll probably just Amphibious Assault one of them and trade down the other because I need to get damage in. Oh my goodness. Come on, guy. I think it's fine taking 1 damage. Well, if I play Chaika, it lets him do Underground State to retreat this to hand. But I might be fine with that. He's out of Plan Wests. He's down Mosquito, Sexton, Avery, Raff it to hand. That's kind of annoying. I mean, he's out of Secret Ops. Maybe he runs Interception, though. Good, that dies. Okay, I would take the opportunity to hit him for... I mean, I need to end this game quickly. And with Tractor Factory's follow-up, is he just gonna, like, Raff again? Like, he can... If he's running Raffs, he's gonna have 3 more ways to return this to hand. Uprising first, so presumably he has a way to damage the Stalin for a critical hit. Air power. Oh. Well, that's annoying. Do I ever just leave Karis and hit him in the face for 5 with Track Fact? Like, he's down both Uprisings, he's down... like, this is just sort of taking up a spot on the board. I guess he can trade critical damage. Or, like, hit at critical damage. Yeah, it's probably better to kill this. Tar now is, like, the last card in his deck. Agency Africa for basically anything. That's fine. Can I sickle? Probably. So he has Sheldon and Monty left. So he can pin for a while, but I don't see how he pins. Like, he's out of board clears. So these units don't die, and he's almost out of Legion generation. Okay, well, draw into second agency, into my parade, into parade on C4th. It's a pretty good way. Too bad you were still just dead on board. Wow. Cannot believe I won that game. Alright, 2-0 with this deck. I think this is so far assuming probably do one more. These games are really long. Don't want to make like a 2-hour video doing the normal 4 games. But I think if I win this next one, it will be the most successful. I don't think I've ever won every game in a Throwback Thursday yet. But yeah, this is my favorite deck in the game. Obviously, does not play the same with the main win condition having been removed. However, I would strongly recommend anybody play this game. It's also a great introduction to control decks because, like, this deck is just so much removal, and it's all about just seeing the correct ways to trade down, seeing the correct ways to manage your resources. Keeps 3 cards. If this is Heinz actually kind of has a tough time into guards. I could just full keep. I might just full keep. But yeah, I think this is a good deck to get your head into control, with just trading down, because a lot of control decks nowadays, they don't earn as much removal, and there's times where you don't want to use it, and it's much more confusing. This is just like the most straightforward control you're going to get, and it's going to sort of let you do well just playing in a very straightforward way, and then as you play more, you will see that there's more things you can do. I'm assuming this is just going to die at 989 or something. Maybe it's like a countermeasure deck? Is this decisive? Cool. The game wants to draw me a hammer, that would be nice. I mean, if he trades moves up, I then sickle, trade into it. Okay, now I'm just gonna Naval Brigade it. My deck should be pretty good into Draw Denial. Throwing out the Naval Brigade now is a little risky, because, like, if they're running Tiger IEs, things can get pretty messy pretty quickly. Ooh. It's a very tempting 0. Let's see if there's any more countermeasures. No airstrike. Okay. I mean, against Japan, Italy, I think I just want to put pressure on. They have really efficient removals, but not really high tempo removals. Like, it's difficult for them to remove 2 or 3 things in one turn. Just play this down first, because some people run, like, Night Hunters or some nonsense. KV, I mean, he needs Detriment to kill it. It's actually really good that I have most of my threats in my hand. FW Reichsbank. Okay. Could just double sickle to kill the FW. Doesn't feel great. Let's single sickle, see what we draw. Yeah, I think I'm going to double sickle, kill it, move up. He's down 1 root out. And if he Leopolds me, he Leopolds me. I have the hammer. I don't want him to be able to Leopold and then also do Mary Nostrum attack. Okay, 2nd root out. That's really annoying. Warble, presumably 2nd Mary. I mean, he's just running low on cards, and German Italy typically does not run card draw. I think this just trades. Is it decisive in hand or something? Kinda just want to get the yak down. Oh, wait, there's up Night Hunters. Neat. So he's now down both line for a dice, which is good. Just see what I draw. I mean, hopefully he doesn't have Stranglehold. Envelop. That's fine. And of course it hits the Workers Unite. I mean, whew, that's quite good. That is quite good indeed. I think I'm just gonna hammer it and play Tractor Factories. Like, I feel like he had ample opportunities to play Dechima. He could top deck Dechima. He does have 2 in the deck. Pass. Is it, like, missing decisive? I'm, like, fairly confident this one's decisive. Yeah. Is it second decisive? He's out of Redoubts. Second Night Hunters. I mean, maybe it was better for me to just pass. Third FW, Panzer H. I mean, he's down 2 Mary Nostrums. It's really difficult to say no to that trade. That's happening. It's Heroes first. I mean, do I just take like a T-34? Seems pretty good. Okay, thank the Lord. It is not Empire Strikes. Yeah, I mean, he's down both Redoubts. He's down line for a day. His Dechimas can't kill it in the front line. He can't stop me top decking it. He's down 2 Night Hunters, Envelop, and From the Deep. Yeah, 3-0. Beat quite a range of decks. Beat 2 modern control decks. Like, that's pretty crazy. I beat both Britain, Poland, and Germany, Italy discard with, like, modern control decks, modern cards. Again, this control deck is actually, I brought this to the same tournament as the last deck, not the last deck, the Japan-German discard deck. I brought this to the same tournament as that one. So this deck existed with just Theaters of War and Allegiance. If you go into the deck collection, you can sort by which expansion cards came from. I mean, if you've been started playing recently, this isn't like a great deal, but let's just say that a lot of the best cards come from post-Allegiance. Obviously, there's some core cards in the base set, but yeah, like research, like the really big effect cards, not necessarily the best cards, but the big effect cards come from the later expansions. So the fact that this was able to win 2 control deck against 2 modern control decks fairly convincingly, I think actually says a lot. This deck might have potential. I might have to modernize it and test around. Maybe we'll see me bringing this to another OCC. I mean, I have a good track record with it. I've won 40% of my OCCs with this deck. But yeah, deck code will be in the description. Join my Discord. Follow me on Twitch. We'll be streaming soon. And yeah, let me know if there's any other decks you especially want to see, or players' decks. I know I've done my own decks a couple times now. But if there's any players who you want to see their decks, or decks from other players, anything like that, let me know in the comments. And thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.